Vijay's got a question here. Are downloads same as insights? Downloads implies something universal that would be available to all. Also, how does one become mindful? Interesting. So, if we look at insight in particular, when looking at the spiritual path, insight, that word is very specific when used within a Buddhist context. There's a specific practice of insight meditation. Vipassana is a practice of insight meditation. And so with these practices, we're looking for insight. Now, some may understand this to mean that we're looking for insight into, emotional things and getting insight into our career or insight into, why we have certain relationship patterns and insight like that. That stuff can come in meditation. And when it does, it's good, it's useful. But there's a different type of insight that something like, say, Vipassana meditation is trying to cultivate. And it's the insight into impermanence, no self, and the nature of suffering. All are interconnected. So the more you sit in meditation and you become aware that everything is in a constant state of change, that gets you to realize that if you cling, you will suffer. And it also gets you to realize that if everything is in a constant state of change, there's no permanent sense of self anyway. So they're all three are connected. And the more you sit in meditation, the more this insight comes, the more you see it more clearly, the more your nervous system becomes acclimated to those insights in a sense. So even though you may have had a realization, everything is impermanent, you sit in meditation and you just sit with that experience of impermanence. You see the particles within your body arising and passing away. The insight goes deeper. Say you've had a realization that there is no permanent sense of self. That's great, but you practice and you sit and you explore it deeper. So that's insight, very specific type of insight, only on those three things: no self, impermanence, and suffering. Okay. Um, that's insight in general. Now, downloads. Sometimes people report downloads. So I'm getting a download of a vision of a business to run or a book to write, or I'm getting a download of the next step in my life, or a download of a new healing modality or something like that. So I would say that these are sort of things that these are influxes of information that come intuitively. And I think people experience it differently. Some people, it comes in a flash, a dream, a vision. They start writing automatically, and there's a whole download. I think it's a more general term. Of course, it's a new term. Download didn't exist, even 40 years ago, right? It just feels like an energetic dump, and then you have to process and make sense of it and do something with it. So downloads implies something universal that would be available to all. Well, I guess your specific downloads may be different. Like, for example, I would say I received a download of what to do about KundaliniAwareness.org. I received a download of information of how to put it together, what will be the main components of it, and all that kind of thing. But that was specific to me because I was the one that's meant to make that website. Not everybody can make that website. I already did it, right? So I think it's not necessarily universal, but insight into those three things: anicca, anatta, and dukkha, impermanence, no self, and suffering, that's universal and available to all. So perhaps you can consider those distinctions. Also, how does one become mindful? Well, it's a practice, right? Mindfulness practice. There's many different ways, of course. Um, Becoming aware without judgment of anything that's arising within your experience, becoming aware without judgment of thoughts, aware without judgment of sensations in the body, aware without judgment of sensory experiences, sounds in the environment, aware without judgment of the breath. All of these things will cultivate mindfulness. And so it's a practice because judgment will arise of whatever phenomena we are trying to practice with. Judgment will come up, and that's okay. We will also forget to be aware. That's going to happen. And that's okay. So it's a practice. It's an ongoing practice. And the more we practice, the more mindful we become. So great questions there, Vijay.